Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Carole Hornsby Haynes, the Haynes Report. You can find her on drcarolehaynes.com, drcarolehaynes.com. Tonight, I want to talk with you all about communism and how it is advancing feverishly into the United States of America. I know Donald Trump told you all that our fight is against socialism, but I want to let you all know that socialism has already won, including in states like Commonwealth of Virginia and as well Louisiana. Um, but there are 45 goals that have been achieved in the United States since the 1950s. And I want you all to know that the woman that can best describe what has happened to America is, while our focus has been placed on socialism, as well it should be, our focus needs to be readdressed to the threat of communism, and that's Dr. Carole Hornsby Haynes. Good evening, Dr. Haynes. It's a tremendous honor to have you on the program this evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Haynes, am I crazy? Am I a lunatic? Well, probably I am, but on this stance regarding the threat of communism, am I wrong? Is communism making a headway into America?
It's already here. Now, if you listen to the Democrats, they will tell you you're a nutcase, you are wearing that silver foil, and you are definitely a conspiracy theorist. But if you look all around, you look at those 45 goals that were listed back in the 50s by a man in particular who was an FBI agent and had been among the communists a great deal. Every one of those have been or now in effect. For instance, one of the keys that we're talking about in education was breaking down those cultural standards by promoting pornography and obscenity in books and magazines and so forth. And we're finding that pornography even in our schools. And then one of the goals was to promote the homosexuality and promiscuity. That the LGBT agenda is being pushed through the radical sex curriculums. And over here in Texas, where I live, the Austin ISD has just passed a very radical sex education curriculum about 2 weeks ago, and it is all about the LGBT, and that's not even legal in Texas, but they're doing it anyhow.
Now, I want to ask you about the LGBTQ, because one of the 45 achievements that has taken place under communism here in the United States was that you would present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, healthy relationship. In fact, that's number
Yes.
26. Now, when it comes to Texas, I've been told that everything's big in Texas and that you all love guns and, quite frankly, are the most ornery, individualistic people on the face of the earth, and nothing leftist would ever make it in Texas. Can you tell us what's happening right now there?
It is really scary. In Dallas, it is getting to the point where Dallas is going to be a police state. South Dallas is almost at that point now. There are a lot of strong conservatives in Texas. It's not that they're not there, it's that they're leaders who are trying to always go the other route, and that means even our Republicans, they're voting right along with the Democrats, and we're having a huge problem with it right now, and it's going to be a problem come a primary time. So far, Texas, you would think that you would see everybody with guns strapped on. We cannot even get constitutional carry passed in Texas, yet other states have it.
Wait a minute. See, but y'all are Texas. You're supposed to be. Now, my wife, Mrs. Biggs, I call her that on the show because to protect her in her career as she listens to us, visited Austin, Texas. And one of the things that she noted was it was no different. Austin, Texas is no different than San Francisco or New York in this regard. It is a haven for leftism. Um, and
It is.
number 25 on the number of 45 achievements so far in communism is that there's a breakdown of cultural standards of morality it is obvious that there's a breakdown in places like Dallas, even Fort Worth, Texas, which used to be a haven for conservatism, is becoming an open carry option for the left in the sense of their propaganda. Could you give us insight in terms of that?
Fort Worth and also San Antonio. San Antonio is just communist straight up over there. They've taken the monuments down here. This has been a real big problem with the Confederate monuments. And it's not that the Confederacy is the real problem, it's the fact that they want all of our history torn away. And it's which monument will they go after next? And of course, they're after George Washington, Jefferson, and the others. So they're just using that as excuses for the Confederacy. But our big cities in Texas are all hard blues. They're not red at all. And so there's Houston, which is very, very left wing. San Antonio is probably right along with Austin, but that's where our capital is. And it is just, in fact, the streets of Austin are just like those in San Francisco, and I think that's what you're referring to. Just recently, they allowed anyone who's homeless to be on the street anywhere. And, and so the streets started to look like those of San Francisco. And then the governor got very disturbed about it, said, well, we'll stop it. But, I don't know what he would have done had it, been somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they're trying to clean it up. But, it's really hard to put the genie back in the box.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, in regards to communism, if you could explain simply to the American people, because Donald Trump's done a wonderful job um, explaining to us that our war is against uh, socialism. But if you could explain to the American people in a simple manner that they can understand why I am quite alarmed, what exactly is communism?
Communism is where the people own nothing. The state's going to own everything, and that even means you. It means that you cannot have private property. You have no freedom of speech. You have no freedom to move around. This is one reason, Ken, that they're wanting to have people all move into the inner cities and to get rid of cars, because it's so much easier to monitor people when you can only walk or take some public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no freedom of movement. Just think about Russia. Think about Cuba. Think about what Venezuela is. At one time, Venezuela was one of the richest countries in the world. It was the richest down in South America around 2004. Today, the people are eating out of trash cans. They don't even have enough food to eat every day. They have lost like 72 pounds of body weight.
Exactly.
And so they're just dying of starvation. And yet they have a huge supply of oil there, but they have no money to get to it. And but the difference is the government. It's like the difference between South Vietnam and North Vietnam. One has freedom, one doesn't have freedom. And it's all about, do we want to be a rich nation with freedom? If we don't, then if people are willing to give that up, then we're going to be just like Venezuela.
Now, a lot of people say, listen, Dr. Carole and Ken, I don't know what you all are smoking. Stop using that jewel. But there is no doggone way that communism could come to the United States of America. Can you tell everyone why socialism is the gateway drug to communism?
Socialism, the purpose of socialism is the short range to get to communism. It's kind of like that frog in the cold water, so that they can get you in without you realizing it. Because what happens this is why Marxism didn't fly in Europe, because that is guns coming in, a hard radical revolution. But Americans were not going to accept that, because we're in Europe, because we were a Christian nation. We were not going to rise up and fight among our own and our Christian neighbors and friends and relatives. So they had to come in very, very cautiously and under the radar. And that's why it's called cultural Marxism, because they had to come in and start taking down our religion, start taking down our traditional family, start taking down a traditional marriage. and start getting the kids to think anything goes, sex is free, sex is easy. And now that's what this transgenderism all about. That is a march. It's called a march to the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is getting us right to communism. And communism is where you're going to find force against force. You and I talked about that. Where you're going to have every day, there's no freedom. It's hard living. It is force against force. And the people are going to be kept in place by force. They're even talking now about, and they've been doing this, but now this really out in the open. And that is controlling the population. And, you know, a number of years ago, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, anyhow, he said, well, let's reduce the population from 7 billion to 2 billion. Except that who's going to be part of that 5 billion that goes away? Well, it's not supposed to be them. It's supposed to be you and me.
Exactly.
So who makes all those decisions? Why do they want to do it? You can control people better when there are not so many.
Exactly. I want to talk with you very quickly because a lot of people are listening to us and they're saying, well, thanks for giving us what communism is at 30,000 feet. But you haven't proven that communism is invading America. I want to talk with you tonight about an issue that concerns many of us, and that is the violence that's breaking out in the classroom between teacher and student. And many people would say, well, you could solve that problem by just allowing the psychiatric community to get involved. If you have a social worker go in and talk with the kids, if you deal with all of those behavior problems as psychiatric disorders, then you can treat them, it'll be solved, and then life would be better. Isn't that a sign that communism is making its inroad into America?
Yes, in fact, that was something that dictators commonly use. Hitler was using it. And this is about if there's something about someone you don't like or they don't go along with your system, you just find a way to put them away. You declare them insane, they can become guinea pigs, so to speak. But it doesn't help, Ken, to put these people away. If you come in and you try to go after each one of these people and do psychoanalysis and all, what's happening? Why are they that way? When I was teaching a number of years ago in Memphis, my hometown, we didn't have the autistic children then. We didn't have all of these children out of control. But what you see in the classroom now is exactly, it's a symptom of what the cause is. So we are creating these problems that are going on in our classroom. It's being done on purpose by this communistic approach. This is purposely being done. The kids are being dumbed down, and they're being, in fact, children are taunted all the time. You see little children who, if the teacher doesn't like something he's doing, that we've seen the police being called out and putting handcuffs on little 6-year-old children, and they take them off to jail. This is communism. People don't understand. You cannot bring enough counselors in. When you do that, you've got a police state.
There you go.
And that is communism.
You mention police state often, and one of the things I just shared with my audience in the chat room is the discredit of the American founding fathers, which is number 30, and present them as a selfish aristocrat to the common man, setting up the idea of bourgeoisie, that the founding fathers were this elite group of individuals apart from the desires of a free state. And I want to talk with you very quickly because regarding that, if you degrade the founding fathers, would you not also degrade all fathers? And is that not the purposes of a dictator, to separate father and mother from child?
Yes, exactly. That's why they're trying to take down the family. Because when you have a very strong family, with the father will be the leader, and so it's a group, an institution. Dictators cannot handle other institutions. They cannot handle other authority figures. The church is an authority figure. The family is an authority figure. So when you take the father out of the house, then you have the mother looking to the government to help her take care of her children. and then the children are just left alone, then this is what you were seeing Hillary Clinton talk about. It takes a village to raise a child. So now they're saying, well, let's put these children into pre-K. Let's put them into a government daycare. They want these children to taken away from the family to be put into where the government can dictate how these children are going to think. So it's all about the breakdown of the family. When you see that, you know you're on a march toward communism full-fledged.
Now, some people...
And they're taught also to rat on each other, even family members against family members.
Which was what Obamacare was. You had to tell on your mom and dad that they had a gun in their house. You had to rat them out. Now, a lot of people don't understand. I might be old enough to understand because I've lived for 300 generations, apparently. But Mao Zedong and Adolf Hitler had something in father against the child, or the child against the mother and father. They created brown shirts and they created red armies that basically said that you were to take out mom and dad because they don't want you to have the freedom that the state does. So there are two questions that I have for you. And it follows up on the last question regarding fatherhood. Even the left know that you must have a father in the household, but the father becomes the state. And then secondly, is America's government attempting to create a division between parent and child?
Yes, and can I start with the second one? Do we
Yes.
start with the father as the state?
Go right ahead. Start where you wish.
Okay. Okay. The children against the parents. I heard Al Gore say this several years ago. He was talking to a group of maybe high school seniors, and he said, you know, we just have to educate your parents because they don't always know as much as you know. So the teacher will say something in the classroom, and then they go home, and the children then lash out against the parents and say, well, you don't know that. My teacher told me something differently. And so then the parents are being ostracized, and it's being done on purpose to alienate that child from those parents. And this is what the UN has said to do when first was established, created in 1945, and UNESCO in 1946. And that is to take the child away from the parents because of the poisonous thinking. They want to get rid of our national sovereignty. They want there to be a state takeover. And then the father is the state. That's why they want the father out of the household, because then the state does become the father. And the child looks to that government because now he disrespects his parents, he disrespects the church, he disrespects the clergy, he disrespects authority.
Now, my final question to you tonight, because there was a question regarding social programs, I think we addressed that, but I'm going to have you come back more often so we can talk about all of these things and people can be ready. But you mentioned the church. And one of the things that the church did during the 1950s and 60s was begin to allay its responsibility to govern actually to the state. And part of that was built on the framework that you couldn't have a pastor in the pulpit, and this is in Black America. I don't know about other places, but this was in Black America. You couldn't have a pastor in the pulpit who didn't have a Ph.D. And most of the individuals who obtained their PhDs went to progressive or leftist seminaries, which were not preaching Jesus, but preaching leftist propaganda. How important is it for the church to be infiltrated and religious orders to be infiltrated by the left in order to install communism?
Well, when cultural Marxism was set up here in the early 1930s, when they fled in Germany and they situated themselves at Columbia University, they decided that they were going after 4 institutions to start undermining our culture, to start decaying us from within. And one of them was education, one of them was entertainment, one of them was labor, and one of them was the church. And so they went, and so some of these 1960s left-wingers went into the seminaries, and today it's not Jesus, it's Christ. It's like the Unitarianism back in early 1800s when they took over Harvard. But you see, in fact, at SMU, in their School of Theology, I was told this by one of the faculty members that 3 or 4 years ago, that there were something like 8 faculty members there who, in theology, who were socialists. Now, how can they be socialists, and how can they believe that they believe and still be in the church? Well, it's because in the church now, they're not even teaching that the Bible is the holy word of God. It's just a book. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is not our Messiah. Jesus he's just another person out there. So it's totally different. And the Methodist Church has been going on. It's been infiltrated with communists since the early 1970s. And in fact, they actually march with the communists. Did you know that?
Yes.
At the corporate level, they actually go on marches with the communists.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the great joys I've had is this conversation with Dr. Carole Hornsby Haynes. The Haynes Report is something I'm going to encourage that you include in your studies every single morning. Dr. Carole Haynes.com is a place that you need to go. Because BZ and I were so unsettled with our conversation last night that we could clearly see that this is not socialism that we're fighting. And in order to fight the enemy, you need to identify the enemy. And our enemy is not socialism anymore. Anytime you have individuals that would stand up on a stage and not have an American flag and then promise to give health care and welfare and other benefits to illegals that you can't get here at home yourself, that was an indication of the one world order. And the Democrat socialists, and I don't know how you can call yourself a Democrat today, because there's no such thing. You are a socialist because your people who lead you are socialists. We are being led down the primrose to economic hardship, and as well the lack of freedom and liberty. And it's because of communism, the pursuit thereof. And I'm going to encourage you all to go to the Haynes Report, read her stuff, know your truth. The enemy is not socialism anymore. Socialism has won because you celebrate Labor Day. Communism is the real enemy, and it is coming our way. Dr. Haynes, I want to thank you so much for conversating with us, and I look forward to you coming back on the show very soon.
It's been my pleasure.
God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what we have to do. We have to go to a commercial break because we want to still make a profit in America. I'm going to encourage that you stay with us. We'll be back with more of the best of urban conservative talk. Yes, you are watching The Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital, TECN TV, the best in urban news and commentary. We'll be right back.